Let's head back to Colorado. We watched this sentencing hearing play out. They took a break so that the judge could have some time, and they are back on the record. So let's go back into the courtroom.
The charges before the court are added count 16, second-degree murder, a Class 2 felony, and a crime of violence enhancer, such that that range is (16 to 48 years in the Department of Corrections. Added count 17 is criminal attempt, first-degree murder, also a Class 2 felony with a different range, 8 to 24 years in the Department of Corrections as a potential penalty with mandatory parole to follow either. There's an agreed-upon floor of 35 years, such that the count 16 range is now 35 to 48 years in the Department of Corrections, and then again 8 to 24 years on count 17. The effective range, therefore, is between 35 and 72 years, as the parties have mentioned during their arguments. I'll start with where we ended, and that is Mr. Karol-Chik acknowledging and taking responsibility for the pain, hurt, and fear that he caused. And he asked for forgiveness, but it's not for this court to make that decision. That's really up to those who have been so impacted and so devastated by the actions in April 2023. As much as this court has been impacted of the trauma, the fear, the heartbreak, this court, the jurors, the staff, investigators, and that's a real thing. But I suspect it's merely the tip of the iceberg that Mr. Karol-Chik is feeling for that pain, hurt, and fear. I suspect that his family, I know they share that pain, hurt, and fear, that same degree that he does. They're seated right here behind him again today. And I suspect that their pain, hurt, and fear is but a tip of the iceberg of the pain, hurt, and fear felt by the community members who loved and knew Alexa Bartell. It's a sad and cruel irony of ending her life. Someone who held a tattoo: love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you. The world does indeed desperately need more people like her, and we lost one because of those actions in April of 2023. To Ms. Bartell's family, I'm very sorry. I am so sorry. And to her parents especially, nobody should ever have to go through what you are going through today and that you've gone through in the last years, and unfortunately will continue to go through in the future. There's no sentence that the court can issue here today, as we've all stated, that can bring her back, and I wish there were. It's been stated that sending Mr. Karol-Chik to the Department of Corrections would be another tragedy. Absolutely. That is absolutely true. But make no mistake, that tragedy was not caused by the sentencing agreement or by this court or by anyone involved in the criminal justice system. It was caused by 3 co-defendants in April 2023. Mr. Karol-Chik did offer testimony at the trial. And it did seem to lead the jury to conclude that it was Mr. Koenig who threw the fatal rock in April of 2023. Only Mr. Karol-Chik and the others in that vehicle know whether that version is correct, as the people presented evidence about at trial, and as Mr. Karol-Chik testified about, or as Mr. Koenig's attorney suggested, Mr. Karol-Chik changed his tune in order to get a deal. Only Mr. Karol-Chik and two others truly know. But it's worth noting that with that responsibility and cooperation, there was some back and forth and uncertainty within his testimony. Ultimately, the parties have gone through the factors as recited in the statute, and a lot of those really come down in many ways to mitigating and aggravating factors, of which the court has many before it. Mr. Karol-Chik has good stability in his personal life, family support. He does not have criminal history. I agree that there's a strong suggestion that his peer influences played a significant role in his participation in these crimes. He ultimately did cooperate with the prosecution, and he has expressed appropriate remorse and emotion, including here today, including at trial. It's true that he was an adolescent at the time. That does not absolve him legally. Yet it is a factor for the court to consider in mitigation. He has many letters on his behalf and support within the community. And true, the court has information regarding a speech evaluation that may have played into those factors that we were talking about earlier. And he had even signed up to join the Marines at the time. The aggravating factors begin and end with victim impact, of course. This was a pattern of conduct, not only on this night, but other nights as well. He had been involved in prior occasions. And the words of so many here today, this court can't even begin to understand the depth of that feeling. Infuriating and inexcusable, talking about life before and life after, people who experience panic attacks, are afraid of being in the dark or driving. Talking about the things they had to see that night. Heart shattered, horrific night of terror, finding it difficult to feel joy without guilt. These are things people should not have to go through, and the impact from this night was tremendous within the families, within the community, and within those who testified as victims as well. Some of the comments, the cavalier attitude following the event, also very much troubling. Does that relate to the youth? Perhaps, but still deeply troubling and deeply aggravating. And ultimately, the court must also view that Mr. Karol-Chik, I think the evidence does support really from all sides. He was seated in the passenger seat at the time of the worst of the events. His participation in the events, unexcusable. but less destructive than those from the left side of the passenger or left side of the vehicle. And that the last event, the last throw, the one that took the life of Miss Bartell, so valued in the community, had a level of violence, destruction, cruelty that is distinct even from the other events of destruction and cruelty of the evening. And I think for that reason, he is differently situated by a little bit. There's plenty of aggravating facts. And as to count 16, with that range of 35 to 48, it clearly cannot be a minimum sentence, even with a very high floor of 35. The defense has presented good reason that it should also not be the maximum, namely suggestibility, community support, remorse, cooperation. So the court does reduce some from the 48-year max to 45 years in the Department of Corrections on count 16. Count 17 has a maximum of 24 years, and that appropriately reflects the nature of the conduct considered in that count. In the court's view, a maximum sentence is warranted on count 17 to 24 years. However, because of those mitigating factors, that time should be served concurrently and not consecutively. Therefore, the court's sentence is a total of 45 years in the Department of Corrections, followed by 737 days of pre-sentence confinement credit. I wish you well moving forward, Mr. Karol-Chik. I wish the Karol-Chik family and supporters well moving forward in your rehabilitation. I especially wish the victims well who were so impacted and affected that night. And I especially wish a good recovery on the family of the beloved Alexa Bartell. I appreciate everybody's appearance here today. Anything else for the people?
Judge, I'm not sure if you noted the years of parole.
Mandatory parole will follow as stated.
45 years in prison for someone who cooperated with this prosecution, testified against his co-defendant who received the max that you can get, life in prison without parole. So 45 years, he'll be out, depending on what parole is, but 64. Because he was 18 at the time. And
state charge, so probably serves 85% of it, or maybe less, depending on his behavior, bottom line, or more. He's going to be in prison for a very long time for what he did, and I don't think anybody would argue that, given the heinous nature of the crime.